Hello, dear senior high school learners. I'm Tutor Floyd, and I'll be your virtual mentor as you explore the realm of literary texts. I'm here to help you skyrocket your reading experience through 21st century literature from the Philippines and the world. Are you guys ready? I definitely hope so. Okay, so let's begin. I hope you guys are having a great day today because I'm so excited to channel that inner aura that you guys have, that inner joy that you have. And let's begin by having a quick recap of the things that we had last week. Last week, as you can recall, we were able to familiarize the basic reading approaches that we can use to fully immerse ourselves in the reading process. Apart from the reading approaches, we are also able, or we were able, to touch some tips in order to produce our very own critical interpretation of a literary piece and a literary analysis. Since we are now able to recall the things that we had last week, let's now proceed to the most essential learning competencies. Actually, there's only one this week. And for week two, that is to compare and contrast the various 21st century literary genres and their elements, structures, and traditions across the globe. Having read the milk or seen the milk, let's also have the objectives for this week. First, point out the relationship between or among concepts such as form, genre, and meaning. Second, recall the four main literary forms out there. Third, differentiate graphic fiction from flash fiction. And finally, appreciate the unique features and elements of each genre. Let's begin with the literature concepts of the week. There are actually three that I'll be sharing today. Let's begin with the first one, which is genre. Genre branches out to different types. You'll have horror, comedy, drama, murder mystery. So there are lots of genres of different literary texts out there. Then comes the second one, which is form. So genres a while back make use of various literary forms as foundation from which you stretch out to different expression, different directions of expression. And when we talk about form, what we're actually having here is a structure, how a text is constructed, how it is organized. And once we hear those descriptions, consider forms or literary forms like the roots of the literary family tree. Imagine how amazing that is. We have the branches already, and then we have the roots. Now, what is the third concept? The third one is meaning. Since we already learned what forms and genres are, let's try to combine them together with content. Now, if there's content, there is meaning that we get from a piece of writing. So, meaning, it's generally the writer's message to you, reader. Writers across the globe selects various forms and genres to help them express the meaning of their texts. For example, there's a poem about a horror mystery. Now, we could send a message if the person or the writer is giving us details like scary experiences or thrilling scenes that would make us jump right up from our seats, even if we're not seeing things on screen, just on paper. That's how the meaning is being expressed. And we get the meaning once we react. So those are the literary concepts of the week. You see how amazing they are? The roots, the branches, which is the genre, and then eventually, if you'll have the fruits or the leaves already, you get to see the meaning behind the literary tree. So amazing, right? Next, let's proceed to redefining 21st century literature. Just like these girls and men in here, literature is a new literary work created within the last decade, written by the so called contemporary or modern authors. 21st century literature deals with current themes and issues that reflect a technological culture that often breaks traditional writing rules. So, if in the past, let's say you have poems and they are really having strict rhyming schemes, in 21st century literature poems, those rhyming schemes may be eradicated, and we usually have the so called free form of writing. So, see how amazing 21st century literature is? We're re enhancing, or rather, we're improving the past or the traditional or conventional writing rules and adding or creating new ones. The literary family tree does not only stop with the parts, genres, form, and meaning. There are still more in the tree, and we call them as the major literary forms or major forms of literature. We have fiction, where we see imaginary characters and stories come to life. We also have drama, where everything that is written is being performed on stage. We also have nonfiction, where we read a lot of factual experiences or incidents of a writer or a writer's fellow. So, nonfiction. We also have, lastly, poetry. All the rhyming schemes, there are metrical verses, and you can see some stanzas, lines in poems. So it's full of love, full of hate at times for its theme, or full of joy, or just simply about nature. So these are the four major literary forms that we've learned since we were younger. Let's proceed now to the focus this session, which is 21st century literary genre. So, actually, there are two that we're going to discuss today, and we're going to see their similarities and differences. Are you excited to know what these two are? I definitely hope so. Well, let's begin with the first one. The first one is a graphic fiction or novel. Now, what comes into your mind when you hear a novel? Can a novel be fiction, nonfiction? Usually, novels are fiction, okay? Mostly, okay? So, graphic fiction or novel, that alone, you would already imagine graphic. So, there are images involved. So, what is really a graphic fiction or novel? It's a narrative in prose form, or in other words, we're not seeing lines like the one or stanzas that we see in poems. We're actually seeing sentences, paragraphs, conveyed to the readers in comic book format or dimension. So you see this joining of the elements of a novel and comics. So that's graphic fiction or novel. In fact, a graphic fiction or novel, it's a comic book narrative that is equivalent in form and dimension to a prose novel as per Campbell. However, the only difference between a traditional novel from the graphic novel that we have in the 21st century is there are pictures arranged in sequence, image panels, dialogues written in speech bubbles, or even thought bubbles. And illustrations would allow us to see a good story. Okay, so imagine a lot of things happening in a story, but with images. So let's try to see what are the different features of graphic fiction. Let's begin with the first one. It has autographic forms, providing a sense of intimacy. So, what are these forms? These are the marks of author's handwriting, which creates an impact to the entire manuscript or the entire graphic novel. Usually, we don't see the normal typeface. We can even see handwriting like uh, words or sentences or expressions in graphic fiction. There's a sense of intimacy because we can relate to the author as if we're the ones writing on paper, not just the usual ones that we see in novels. Second one would be interactivity or interaction between or among characters through the image panels. So if you see such interaction or cohesion or cohesiveness between panels or between scenes, then you'll have a smooth time in understanding a graphic novel. What's a third feature? There's language, there's syntax, and there's meaning built through connected images. And even if you're having a difficult time reading at the moment, maybe you just woke up or you just got out from a break, just by looking at the pictures, you're already having that quick interpretation of the text, quick understanding of the text. So much so, if we've read the different lines that are out there comprising language, how words are being arranged or syntax, and eventually, if we're able to see the images, we're able to see the words or the language and see the beauty of how things are arranged through syntax, we'll definitely get the meaning of the graphic novel or fiction. And finally, combined book and screen experience. So, wow, two peas in a pod, the best of both worlds. Now, let's have the elements of graphic fiction. First element, image panels. So, how do they look like? Let's see. As I lay cozy, all snug in my bed, I enjoy the images inside my head. I quickly silence you, you annoying alarm, and we snooze together and let dreams carry on. Now, when it comes to panels, image panels, or frames in layman's term, we consider their sizes and shape. Usually they're elongated to have that striking effect. Sometimes they're bigger in size because there's this climactic scene that wants to be relished or the author wants you to enjoy. Okay. Now, how do these sizes and shape or image panels come together? That's the big question. Or is it really important if we see image panels from side to side, or maybe have panel borders, or there are images inside or beyond the borders? We'll see later on. Let's check the other parts or elements of graphic fiction. Okay. The second would be gutters. What is the gutter? That's the space in between the image panels. This or these elements, gutters, so plural, you can see a distinction between scenes. One scene separated with another. What if I decide to have a dog in here? As you can see, the dog's tail is already beyond the image panel or the set image panel. We call that as the bleed. These are the first three elements of graphic fiction. Now, what's more interesting about these three coming together is the perspective that we see. There are graphic fictions out there that gives us that bird's eye view. Sometimes they even give us this reader to page symmetry, so eye to eye level. Others even have side to side. So these are important aspects that we need to see. Why? Because if we're having the bird's eye view, we're already seeing a scene as if we're godlike or eagle like. We're seeing everything hand in hand. The author would like us to have this clue on what are the other things that are inside the scene that the characters do not know of. So it gives us that thrill, factor. Okay. Next element here would be this one. All right. Are you familiar with this? Okay. These are thought balloons. And the next one would be speech balloons or word bubbles. Let's see the difference. All right. So they look like they are both balloons or bubbles. And the subtle difference here would be this one. If you see speech balloons or bubbles, we're having this pointed, inverted, or not really inverted. It's like really a V, the normal V. It could be diagonal, straight, diagonal again. Unlike thought balloons, we're seeing bubbles underneath. Others separated, others close to each other. Regardless of how they look, speech balloons hold all the lines or spills of the person in the frame. As for thought balloons, these are things that are inside the head of the character. Easy, right? Finally, we have the narration. As I lay cozy, all snug in my bed, I enjoyed the images inside my head. So that's just a narration. We also have sequence dialogue. So we can really see from left to right. We're seeing the sequence. Okay. And what if I said I add there, or wah and all. Those are actually called the sound effect. Okay, as if we're hearing the sound, but we're only seeing it on paper or on the manuscript. Next one would be this one. Do you notice the effect? Okay, around the clock. Usually, think, 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 it makes that movement if we're seeing it in motion picture. These are what we call as motion line. From the word itself, motion, it gives us a picture or image or illustration of what would be the possible motion of an alarm. Others even have when you're yelling, so you'll have a lot of lines, diagonal lines coming from the mouth of the character. So those are motion lines. Okay. And of course, background colors. Background colors, you can change it depending on the mood. Others have the dark touch, dark gray, or black, even to portray a very serious scene. We can have those. And let's have some examples. Wow. In the Shadow of No Towers, 9/11 by Art Spiegelman. So, what is this graphic novel about? Well, this talks about the story of the terrorist attack that happened on September 11 in the US. It also depicts the traumatic, tragic experiences of all the people who were around the area during the terrorist attack. So it was a sad, sad day for America and even to the world because we have a lot of businesses that are held in that tower that, you know, bursted, exploded. Poor people. Let's pray for their souls, okay? Second example of graphic novel is The Barn Owl's Wanderscapers by Sarnath Banerjee. So this is portraying that 18th century Calcutta exploiting the myth of the wandering Jew. So this is heart wrenching. You may want to read it. This famous 21st century literature or literary text by Ernest Hemingway gives us an idea that baby shoes were sold by the character because they were never worn. Do you have any idea why the shoes weren't worn? Well, it could be that the baby wasn't able to live in this world. So, with that short of a line, we can already have an interesting story. We have a lot of elements already with that single line. Now, what is this literary text? It's an example of flash fiction. The Flash, yes. It's an imaginative literature of extreme brevity. In short, it's short. It's shorter than a short story. It's also known as sudden fiction, micro stories or microfiction, postcard fiction, nano tales, and short stories or short stories. I know, shorter than short. Okay. What are the characteristics of flash fiction? We have first brevity. In terms of length, like I've said a while back, it's shorter than a short story. Usually it holds 6 to 1,000 words. Others even have 500 words or less, just not beyond those, not beyond 500 to 1,000 words. So they're short. Usually writers produce flash fiction as a primer to a long novel, a long text, or even a short story. Others just wanted to create flash fiction just to let time pass, write something that they know, write lines that they can use in their future stories. So that's how flash fiction was born. Second characteristic of flash fiction, it has a complete plot already. It has the beginning, the middle, and the end. So a while back, remember the shoes of the baby? The beginning would be definitely we can already imply from the story, or it's already implied in the story that the baby wasn't born. That's the beginning. What's the middle? The person or the parent of the baby that wasn't born decided to sell the pair of shoes. The end part would be either the shoes was sold or the pair of shoes wasn't sold at all. Okay, so there's already that complete plot. Now, Miss Floy or Tutor Floy, how come it's already complete? Remember, flash fiction can be added and added to a longer story. That's possible. Okay, make them more complete. Surprise ending. So most of the endings of flash fiction are things that we don't expect. They could be happy in nature, they could be horrifying in nature. So I hope once you come across your flash fiction, you'd be ready for the ending. And we jump into the elements this time. Of course, any story won't be complete without the characters. There are no more than 3 to 4 characters, but most flash fiction only have one. But just don't go beyond four, okay? Second, there's not much backstory of the character, where they come from, what were their previous lives, and because it's short or brief, there's not much character development. We don't see the character grow like the ones in novels. We don't see them change their personalities across the story, so not much, okay? And apart from characters, we also have setting and theme. Of course, one setting for one short piece, every detail being counted, and there is a single theme, only one. If you started with love, then it's all about love. If you started with a tone of melancholy or being so sad, then all throughout, that's the theme. Okay? And let's try to check some examples of flash fiction. Let's begin with this girl. Okay. She looks familiar to you, right? She is, of course, Taylor Swift. But there's a flash fiction written for her by Steinberg. Okay. Let's try to read the excerpt. You're in love? It's great. You swipe on your phone and order. The next day, a Taylor Swift clone shows up at your house. Wow, that's interesting, right? So you're in love, it's great. You swipe on your phone and order. The next day, a Taylor Swift clone shows up at your house. So it's giving us this idea that if we tend to not focus on a single person or be religious or faithful to one, and you jump into your next order, the next person you would like to have a relationship with, you'll see the illusion of Taylor Swift, and a Taylor Swift like being appearing on your doorstep. In other words, someone who might write good songs about you, or songs that remind you of how you were unfair in the relationship, or better yet, someone who is vocal about her feelings and tell you that what you're doing is wrong. Why did you leave me without any reason? Or why didn't we fix the relationship before you decided, or we decided together that we'll separate? Mutually, of course, should be mutual. Okay. So that's just an excerpt. If you have time, go ahead and read that flash fiction, and you might be surprised that there's more to the explanation or the quick interpretation that we just had. Second one, unnecessary things. I wonder if a teddy bear is an unnecessary thing to you at this age. For some, yes. So it's by Tatiana Tolstaya. Let's read the excerpt. This teddy bear once had amber eyes made from special glass. Each one had a pupil and an iris. The bear itself was gray and stiff. With wiry fur, I adored him. I wonder why the bear is not gray in the picture. Okay, at regardless of the color, let's just imagine that the gray in the shape is transferred to the teddy bear. You can see in the lines or description that the author was really having this relationship, friendship with the teddy bear. That no matter what it looks like, the teddy bear is the friend. It's special in the heart of the writer or the kid. But as we age, we see that as an item that we once loved or adored, but at present, not anymore. Hence, it's considered as an unnecessary thing already. So that's just, again, an excerpt of the piece by Tolstaya. There you have it. We are able to see some examples of both graphic fiction and flash fiction. Now, let's test your knowledge towards these two and see if we can recall their elements, features, or characteristics. It's time for some assessment. All right, so let's try to read the instruction for today's assessment. Read the scenarios or statements given in each number. Then identify the 21st century literature genre or concept described in each. Oh, I hope you guys are excited. Let's see. Let's have the first one. Which genre of 21st century literature involves an author's narrative in prose while infusing images or illustration to a story, often in a comic book fashion, while maintaining a resemblance to the length, story, or quality of novels? Here are the choices: comic books, graphic novels or fiction, illustrated novels, or mythology. In three, two, one, which literary genre is this? Okay, let's see. And the answer is, oh, I think it disappeared. There you go. The answer would be graphic novels. Good job, people. Next. Next question. It is where the dialogues in graphic fiction are located or being written. A. Gutter. B. Image panels. C. Motion lines. Or D. Speech bubbles or balloons. Gutter in between panels. Panels, the square, the rectangle, motion lines. So it's giving us the signal on how or which direction a certain object or person is moving. Speech bubbles or balloon speech, dialogues, words. Oh, there you have it. You have your clue in three, two, one. The answer would be speech balloons, or bubbles. So the next one. How do flash fiction commonly end a story? Okay. First, it presents a painful ending. Possible. B, it usually ends happily and merrily. Hmm, I don't know. Let's see. C, readers have the liberty or the freedom to give their own ending. Makes sense. Possible. Possible. If you're going through a literary analysis, yes. Or D, the story ends with a twist. Surprise ending. So, which is the answer for this item? Think hard. In three, two, one. The answer is yes, you got it right. The story ends with a twist. Let's move on to the fourth question, which is how is a literary form different from genre? A. Genre is the general structure of a piece of writing, while the literary form is a particular style within a genre. Interesting. B. Literary form is the general structure of a piece of writing, while the genre is a particular style within the form. That's B. There's still more. Here's letter C. They're both general structures of a piece of writing, but there are more genres than literary forms. Makes sense in a way. D, they're essentially the same. Definitely a big no no. Letter D is out. It's obvious. So, what is the answer? Is it A, B, C, or D? Or just until C, right? So, come on. Just a quick recap on your end. Flashing it now. The choice A, then B, and C. So, what do you think is the answer for item four? Think hard. Three, two, one. The answer is ready. Letter B. The literary form is the general structure of a piece of writing or literary text, while the genre is the particular style within a form. Good point. Next, final one. Which characterizes flash fiction? A. It combines letters and words. B. It presents fewest words as possible. C. Illustrations allow readers to imagine and experience the characters and events in the story. And finally, it presents colorful image panels. Let's go through each item. Letter D presents colorful image panels. There are no panels in flash fiction, right? And these are located where? Graphic fiction. Letter C, illustration allow readers to imagine, experience the characters and events in the story. Yes, we're allowed to imagine, experience some events in the story as if we're the characters, but there are no illustrations for flash fiction. Letter A and B, yes, most likely these are characteristics of flash fiction. Yes, letters and words, definitely. But which between the two, A and B, is the best characteristic of flash fiction? Think about it. In three, two, one. So let's see what the answer is now. It's letter B. It presents fewest words as possible. Great work, guys. I'm very happy that you were able to answer most, if not all, the questions that we have today. In fact, I'm very happy that we are able to recall all the four basic literary forms that are out there that pave way to the newer 21st century literary genres. We were able to also distinguish both flash fiction and graphic fiction and get to know their elements and features. I hope you have appreciated all these and get to write your own. And let's have a quick sneak peek on what to expect next week. We'll be discussing creative literary adaptations. So, what are adaptations? Things that may be originally in a specific form, transformed to another. Let's see what these forms are next meeting. Okay? And of course, allow me to leave this weekly quote for you guys by Lobsang Tenzing. To learn means by practice, by inquiring, by analyzing to find out what is, not what was. So, this is a special message when it comes to reading. It's not enough to just have a specific approach to use in reading. You also have to learn how to critique a work, interpret a work with the correct idea of what the genre is, what the form is, and what is the underlying meaning of the text. That'll make your understanding of literature even better and more appreciated. I hope you'll have that inner peace, inner patience, and inner passion to pursue your love of writing different types of literature or just reading them as a start. Okay. And once again, that's about it for today's session, you guys. Don't forget to subscribe to the DepEd TV YouTube channel to revisit and share our episode today. Once again, this is Shooter Floyd reminding you to read more literary texts to explore the extent of your imagination. The realm of possibility awaits. Go now and start working on your masterpiece. Tune in again next time for a weekly dose of 21st century literature from the Philippines and the world every Tuesday from 4:15 to 4:55 p.m. Thanks for watching, everyone. Toodles!